Election season isn't quite over. Of course, we knew it would take a while to count votes in this pandemic, no problem there. And while we have a winner, it's going to take a few weeks for everyone to acknowledge that winner. Where does that leave us in the meantime? We're asking the line. We've got two special guests this week. Former Lieutenant Governor Dianne Dennish is back with us. It's been a while. We've also got Ed Perea. He's a lawyer and public safety analyst. Thanks for being here, Ed, always. We've also got two familiar faces at the virtual table, former state senator and another line regular, Diane Snyder. And last but not least, certainly attorney and line regular Sophie Martin. Now, a couple of pieces from the New York Times are worth thinking about. First, the paper contacted election officials in every state and found no voter fraud is happening either at all or on any scale meaningful enough to make a difference. And second, a plea for standardized vote counting by a law school professor who says different ways of counting and reporting the vote create a huge hole for bad information to spread. And Sophie, do you think the nation, let me start with the second part there. Sophie, do you think the nation should standardize how vote counting is reported to the public?
I don't think it's a bad idea, frankly. This particular election has really highlighted for a lot of us how much anxiety and but also gamesmanship is created by the way that we count our votes today. I don't know whether I think the states would agree to it, and that's really the first step, right? Is in our governmental structure, that's not something that can necessarily be dropped on states from on high, because it does implicate our Constitution.
Senator Snyder, a lot of folks feel like, if we standardize how votes are counted and reported, importantly, many people say the strength of the U.S. election system is that states administer the election, as Sophie just mentioned, instead of the federal agency. It's not hard to imagine how that could go wrong if you think about it a little bit. Does that give you a little bit of agita, as they say?
Well, not really.
Okay.
I was in the Senate during redistricting. So that, I think, does belong with the states. And I've always been a states' rights person in feeling and thought and philosophy. But the thing that I found so striking, and I talked to a lot of my very conservative friends that aren't real familiar, like all of us are, with the election process and the counting of votes. And if you're just Joe Blow citizen and you look, and I'm just going to use Pennsylvania and Georgia, if you look at those where at the first, the president was so far ahead, and then all of a sudden votes kept coming in and coming in and coming in, and it changed to their, I can't remember whether he's ahead or not, neither one of them, but they're a very small difference, less than 1 percentage point difference. But I think people who don't understand that process of the difference between rural votes and metropolitan area votes, they could be easily led to believing that there's been nefarious goings on.
Is that is that the media's fault, Senator? Did we not explain things clearly enough about how this all works at the beginning?
I don't know, and we never have. It's not just this year's vote. I think the only year where we really heard and finally understood was 2000, because we all know what a hanging chad is, or a nipple chad, or all of those kinds of things because of that election. The only thing about it is you look at, it was in 2000, it was 31 days from election day to the day we formally had a president-elect. Both candidates filed lawsuits and went on and on and on. But the world, including the United States, sat and waited for 31 days to find out who was going to be the president-elect. And this is not uncommon. One of the people who I think is a go-getter is Stacey Abrams from Georgia.
Right.
But when she ran for governor in 2018, she did not concede for 11 days, because even though her Republican opponent had been ahead the whole time, because she thought there had been some voter disincentive going on. And
I'm going to jump in, Senator, real quick. I want to be able to get Ed and Lieutenant Governor here real quick. We're just a little tight on time. Ed, the post office, I use that word agito once again. The post office found itself in a bit of a jam, didn't it? But folks trust the post office. It polls that way a lot. Does the post office need to do something different? Or again, we need to explain this a little bit better. What's the disconnect here between folks who didn't quite get that, look, the first people that voted are the last people counted in a mail-in vote system. It just something didn't quite connect there.
Gene, I think a big part of the problem this election cycle was that the post office became politicized.
Yeah.
People who talk about the post office and the delivery of mail, most people, as you mentioned, are generally satisfied with the postal services. But as a result of the politicization of politics and everything that was taking place with this election cycle, I think it drew a lot of caution and concerns amongst your average person politically, depending on which side you fell on. And I think both sides had some distrust of the post office, and they tended to look at the post office's services with somewhat of a jaundiced eye and discomfort. So I think in the future, if the post office can remain apolitical, as I think they have, I think people will regain that trust. But again, this election cycle was a little bit unique, and there are probably certain things that need to be addressed to ensure that they are able to rebuild that trust.
Gotcha. Lieutenant Governor, I got a question for you, and I want everyone to kind of join in on this. A tradition holds in politics that sometimes when you have competent people, they're going to be tagged to come join the party in Washington. And perhaps the rumors out there about our governor, our Deb Haaland, for Interior Secretary, we've got notes of Martin Heinrich, Senator Heinrich as Interior Secretary, Senator Udall now, ex-Senator Udall as. Where do you see the pieces sort of falling? First things first, do you think the governor has a chance to really become part of the Biden situation? And should she, if in fact she gets tagged to do so?
Well, thanks so much for putting me on the spot like that, Gene. I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
But I do want to say one thing about the voting. I think the
Please.
media did a really good job of encouraging people to put their votes in the mail early. So I think that's one thing that the media did. It was very helpful in this election to put those absentee ballots in. But let me just say, first of all, I'm so excited that 3 people from New Mexico are really the only names in consideration to be Department of Interior Secretary. And we have so very viable expertise, and it says something about how New Mexico approaches the land and the conservation of the land. So whether or not the president-elect will choose 2 cabinet secretaries from New Mexico, I think is probably questionable. I think it's a very hard calculus on behalf of the governor to make a decision to leave in the middle of her first term, especially in the middle of a crisis that she's well qualified to handle and that she's wrangling with right in the middle. But she certainly would fit the role that she's being considered for at the Health and Human Services Department. But we do have these great opportunities for New Mexico once again to be a shining star. And Deb Haaland, I understand, is moving right up there. She's got 120 tribal leaders who have written letters on her behalf to be Interior Secretary. And certainly Tom Udall has a family history and the resume of being qualified to be Interior Secretary. So it's an exciting time for New Mexico in the middle of all the chaos.
Mm-hmm. You know, Sophie, speculation is one thing. It happens all the time. We can think back to when Governor Richardson almost had that commerce position that didn't quite work out. We've been down this.
I remember that, Gene. I
bet you do. Well, that makes the point. When a chess piece moves on the board, other pieces move as well. And Sophie, if in fact it's Mr. Heinrich, that for Interior Secretary, that would open up a whole interesting set of dominoes falling over. That would be fascinating on a lot of levels. First of all, being the governor appointing someone to replace him in that position as well. Riff on that if you would. Again, we're just speculating, but you never know on these things.
One of the things that I think that makes New Mexico and New Mexico's potential cabinet secretary so appealing, besides the expertise, besides the everything that they bring to the table, is that there is no doubt that if a position in the federal government opens, meaning a Senate seat or a Congress seat opens up, the replacement will be appointed by a Democrat. So unlike, say, Elizabeth Warren out in Massachusetts, where if she left the Senate, her replacement would be appointed by a Republican, here, President-elect Biden can look at New Mexico and say, it's actually pretty safe, all things considered, to select somebody from this state, knowing that the new leadership to replace them, the new person to replace them, will be a Democrat. And so I think that's an important element. Certainly, Martin Heinrich has built his political career on sort of balancing the progressive politics, in our communities, with an appreciation for and understanding of the great outdoors and the necessity to protect our natural heritage. So I think all three of those candidates are extraordinarily strong and would represent New Mexico well. And it's going to come down to a bunch of things, right? Maybe even some considerations that we're not thinking about for the Biden camp. But absolutely, I think that issue of will we lose a Senate seat, will we lose a House seat, has to be really important in this conversation.
Good point there. Again, all speculation, but you never know. We're out of time on our election chat. We're continuing the conversation next, though, with an expert on conflict and crisis during an election.